Hello, this is Eastern Europe Review, the common project of BELSAT and TVP World, the reports and analysis from Ukraine, Belarus and Russia. I'm Alexandra Shapalina and these are the main stories. A Russian military plane damaged by Belarusian partisans flew away for repairs. What does it mean for regimes in Belarus and Russia?
Those who organized the explosion represent the Peremoha plan. These are the Belarusian partisans who continue the rail war, which started in February-March last year.
Poland in the crosshairs of the Putin regime's propaganda. Will it be the next Russian military target?
There is a strong, constant narrative that Poland wants to grab Western Ukraine. All new fakes are being created about it.
A volunteer from Poland has been helping Ukrainians defend themselves since 2014.
I am in defense of Ukraine, in defense of Poland and Europe. I defend values that I consider fundamental for a peaceful life.
A unique military aircraft that carried out radio-electronic reconnaissance and helped the Russians hit the targets in Ukraine has been partially disabled. It happened in the territory of Belarus at the airfield near Minsk, right under the nose of Putin's helper, Lukashenko. The Belarusian and Russian regimes found themselves in a difficult position of how to save face when strategically important military equipment was damaged in a territory they thought was fully controlled.
There are many assumptions about what might have happened at the Belarusian military airfield Machulishchi on February the 26th. At 8, or according to other sources, 10:30 in the morning, local residents heard 2 explosions. Soon, a large number of military personnel were spotted in the area, and the traffic police became more active. Just after 2 p.m., BIPOL, which unites Belarusian security forces in exile, published the news. A Russian long-range radar detection AU-50 military aircraft was damaged at the Machulishchi airfield. Later, it was reported that there was an explosion. The plane was attacked from the air with the help of drones with explosives. As a result, its front and central parts were damaged.
Those who organized the explosion represent the Peremoha plan. These are the Belarusian partisans who continue the rail war, which started in February-March last year.
There were no official statements from Minsk or Moscow whether the plane was disabled or not. Only 4 days later, Belarusian state television showed the AU taxiing on the runway in the dark. But the authorities in Minsk didn't make any statements regarding this fact. What's more, Lukashenko himself remained silent.
This tells me that Lukashenko really has a problem: how to apologize, how to justify himself to his Russian friends, his elder brother in Moscow, for missing it.
5 days after the incident, it came to light that the A-50U plane took off, left the airspace of Belarus and headed for the 325th Aviation Repair Plant in Taganrog. Everything that had happened before is also significant. Immediately after the damage, there was information about increased checks at the border, including with Russia. Security forces began to monitor comments in social media and visit drone owners to record information concerning the equipment. In addition, some people were detained, at least in Machulishchi, Fanipol and Dzerzhinsk. It looks like panic, but what is so important about this plane?
This aircraft is used to identify the coordinates of Ukrainian air and missile defense, to see how Russian missiles can evade it, and to identify targets that are then struck. When it takes off, it means they start collecting information about military and civilian objects in Ukraine that need to be destroyed.
The A-50U aircraft is capable of determining coordinates at a distance of up to 600 kilometers and costs, according to various estimates, from $330 to $500 million. There are about 6 such planes in Russia, so if they replace it in Belarus, they will lose the remote monitoring system in another area. Losing the A-50U is a big fiasco for Putin and, of course, Lukashenko. But it is unlikely that Lukashenko will receive a slap from Putin for his oversight. His regime remains one of the very few partners of Russia today.
Everything will be done behind the scenes, and strategically both sides will cooperate. Perhaps the control over security of military bases and military facilities will be strengthened.
On the contrary, Russia can try to turn the situation in its favor. The Putin regime can use the version that the plane was blown up by Ukraine to put psychological pressure on Lukashenko and provoke him to join the war directly. Also, we shouldn't expect any noticeable changes in the attitude of the authorities in Kiev to start a dialogue with the democratic forces of Belarus. Ukraine doesn't want to provoke Lukashenko, and the threat to Ukraine from Belarus, with or without an airplane, remains the same. However, the incident itself can have not only military, but also a symbolic significance. This is a signal to the Russians that they can't feel at home in Belarusian territory.
Russian propaganda purposefully makes an enemy of Poland. There has been an increased number of fake news appearing in the media. In addition, it can be observed that more anti-Polish speeches are made by government officials, including Vladimir Putin. And since the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the amount of misinformation from the Kremlin propaganda has increased significantly. How to deal with mass disinformation, and why is Russia trying to make an enemy of Poland? More details in our next story.
Over the past few years, Russian propaganda has presented Poland as one of Russia's main enemies, and in parallel it tries to drive a wedge between Warsaw and Kiev.
The problems of the common historical past and the grievances of the past are also in use. The ethnic conflicts that accompanied these relations between Poles and Ukrainians during World War II, the Volyn tragedy. These conflicts are a sore subject for both sides.
The war in Ukraine has radically changed relations between Kiev and Warsaw. According to the Polish Border Services, more than 2 million Ukrainians have found asylum here. In Poland, they can rely on a number of social guarantees.
There is a strong constant narrative that Poland wants to grab Western Ukraine. All new fakes are being created about it. It was announced that Poland had prepared ballots for a referendum on the accession of Lviv to Poland. In addition, a Polish TV channel allegedly showed Western Ukraine as part of Poland on the map in the weather forecast.
After Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the amount of misinformation from the Kremlin propaganda has increased significantly. Poland is preparing the annexation of part of Ukraine. Ukrainian refugees threaten Polish society. Russian state media are full of such headlines. Here is another example of Russian propaganda.
This video allegedly shows a banner at Centrum metro station in Warsaw. According to Russian media, the advertisement calls for the protection of native Polish lands in Ukraine. In fact, there has never been such a banner, and if we analyze the video itself, it is obvious that it was taken in 2018 and a deepfake effect was put on it.
The total length of the border between Poland and Russia is 204 kilometers. It seems that here in the Kaliningrad region, anti-Polish propaganda has found a fertile ground. However, we hardly managed to find such sentiments in the streets of the city.
People do not consider the Poles to be enemies. People really want Kaliningrad to open its borders again so we could go and buy goods from them, the Poles. They are happy to meet Russians. But this one, the president of Poland, is easily influenced. He chose the wrong way. He needs America. No one has done anything wrong to me personally, and in general I'm not interested in politics. Why has Poland become an enemy? I do not know. It wouldn't become an enemy for nothing.
But the attitude of people in the Polish capital has obviously worsened against the backdrop of the war.
What is my attitude to Russians? Like the average Pole. Since Russians don't like us, we don't like them either. It's complicated to feel. It's not that it doesn't interest me, but still it doesn't concern me. I just sit at home and watch TV.
I work as a teacher. I have Russians, Ukrainians and Belarusians in my class. Children are very tolerant towards Russians. They see that they have left Russia after all.
According to the operational statistics of the Ministry of Finance of Russia, the Kremlin spends more than 1.5 billion annually on propaganda. How to deal with mass disinformation? After all, for many Russian people, especially in the remote parts of the country, the only source of information is TV.
When you have been told about Ukrainian Nazis and NATO's plans to attack Russia, about the alleged NATO bases on the territory of Ukraine or American laboratories for 8 years on a daily basis, then of course people are susceptible to this informational influence.
Last March, Poland expelled dozens of Russian diplomats and declared some of them to be spies. Moscow declared several Polish diplomatic representatives persona non grata in response, and the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs promised to give an even more appropriate response. However, the Russian and Polish embassies have continued their work in the countries until today.
5 cars, several dozen tons of various humanitarian aid worth around $1 million. This is what Olga Solish has managed to collect. The Polish woman has been at war since 2014, and although she works as an ethnographer and anthropologist, Russia's war in Ukraine has not left her indifferent. Who does she help, and what motivates Olga to go to the front line twice a month? Here are the answers.
More than 1,500 kilometers, about 30 hours on the road, exhaustion and sleep deprivation. All this takes a back seat and loses its importance when transporting humanitarian aid to the defenders of Europe, says Polish volunteer Olga Solarz.
I'm in defense of Ukraine, in defense of Poland and Europe. I defend values that I consider fundamental for a peaceful life.
Olga has been at war since 2014. She started helping the military from the Aidar battalion, which was then defending the lines in the Luhansk region. Currently, under her volunteer tutelage, are the soldiers of the Dnipro Brigade of the Territorial Defence, who are fighting in the direction of Donetsk. It takes about 2 weeks to collect the humanitarian cargo. Olga says she tries to make the most of people's donations.
We try to fill as much space as possible. Take the tires, for example. I was carrying them last time, and now too. So we fill them with soft things. Trousers, for example. We want to use the room in the cars as efficiently as possible and make sure there is not even an inch of empty space.
During a year of Russia's war against Ukraine, Olga has travelled to the battleground at least 15 times. According to the woman, she does not keep accounting records, as most of the humanitarian cargo are items purchased by donors. She primarily carries aid for the army, but also collects food for civilians in the frontline zone.
There are lots of people staying here in the frontline zone, a lot of the poor and pensioners. I understand they need help because they are the ones who do not have the means to leave. We are now on our way to an elderly couple, the locals, who celebrated their 60th diamond wedding anniversary a few days ago. I'm helping them.
February the 17th was our 60th anniversary together. We had 100 people congratulating us on the internet.
Vasil Volodymyrovich and Evdokia Kirillivna have survived the evacuation from their home village, the death of their son in the war, and celebrated their wedding anniversary a few kilometers from the front line. At the same time, the elderly couple do not lose their optimism and are happy to receive guests and share their recipe for a long-term relationship.
You should never fight. If you quarrel, you should hug and kiss, and it all shall pass.
Olga shows us what she has brought to the front line this time. There is solid fuel for the trenches, car tyres and spare parts for cars, clothes and combat boots, optics and a pickup truck for the soldiers' needs. During the year, Olga delivered 5 vehicles to the soldiers.
All of the cars are essentially on the move. There are 2 in repair at the moment. It can be tough to get spare parts.
The smell of strawberries fills the room. It's all because of the trench candles, says Olga. She adds strawberry flavouring to the usual paraffin. They were made by a German community and given to Ukrainian soldiers. According to Olga, many people from Europe want to help Ukrainians and understand that the Ukrainian armed forces are defending all of Europe on the battlefield.
Russia as a country behaves aggressively, and Poles are well aware of this and understand that Ukraine comes first on the list. But after Ukrainians, there will be the Baltic states, and next probably there will be Poland. An aggressive neighbor, if not stopped, will continue its aggression. They need to be told stop and pushed back. Poles perceive this as an element of national security, as by helping Ukraine, they are helping themselves.
Olga does not come to the front line just for a day or two. The woman says she spends several weeks here. This allows her to better understand what the military's needs are, and the knowledge she gains makes it easier to find what is needed. During a year of the full-scale war, according to her calculations, Olga has brought in a total of $1 million worth of aid of various kinds.
That's all for today. Thank you for watching Eastern Europe Review. We will be back next week with the new stories. I'm Alexandra Shapalina. Keep watching TVP World and see you next time.